Now, this story has many layers, but I'll do my best to simplify what has happened over the last few months for the sake of your time. To properly tell this story, you need to know a few things. My husband and I are veterans. We've been married for 9 years. I had never met his sister before this whole ordeal. She went to Morocco a couple years ago for some guy she met online, married him, got pregnant, came back to the States and had her baby and is still living here. She has custody of this child. She has a previous kid with another foreigner who apparently just ghosted her and went back to his country, Turkey. And my mother-in-law has custody of that child. My husband and I quit drinking and started working a 12-step program 6 months ago. We hit 200 days sober this week. Yay! My child was sent to stay with my mother-in-law for this time. She's back with us now, so we could get our feet under us and get our house in order again. So about 3 months ago, we got a phone call in the middle of the night that we needed to go pick up my sister-in-law and that it was an emergency. She said she was being kicked out of her place. She had been living with coworker for a few months, and that her and her baby had nowhere to sleep. We set them up in our daughter's room and everything seemed to be going fine. She tells us that she has a new apartment but has to wait about 1 more month to move in. We tell her that it's fine and that seems doable. Our only rule was that under no circumstances was she to bring alcohol into this house, ever. Our only rule was that under no circumstances was she to bring alcohol into this house, ever. We kept repeating it to make sure she fully understood, and she said we had nothing to worry about. Everything is going great. His sister hangs out with me while my husband's at work. I babysat while she ran errands. My husband took her to work every morning, dug in 5 a.m., and picked her up every afternoon. Then went to his own job where he works nights. He didn't mind because this was only temporary and she obviously needed help. One day while my sister-in-law is at work, I tell my husband I smell beer, and I thought it was pretty weird. He said he smelt it too. We go into the room and there's a whole trash bag full of empty beers. My sister-in-law gets home and I let her know we all need to have a talk. I told her that we told her our one rule was no alcohol and that it was not cool of her to do something like that when we're going out of our way to help her, and especially since it's so early in our recovery. I don't know if she was having a bad day or what, but she completely flipped out, screaming, "I'm not drunk. It's just beer. I didn't know you guys had a problem like that." I told her we go to AA damn near every day and she knows this. She flies off the handle and storms off to the room, slams the door and gets on the phone calling anyone who will listen about how we're awful people. Our walls are thin. We can hear everything. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that reaction from her. I was upset, but I wasn't going to kick her out. I figured she'd say sorry and we'd keep our distance from each other for a few days. She locks herself in the room and is just screaming into the phone about how we're obsessed with her and how my husband is nothing but a drunk and a loser. He's been working extremely hard on himself and starts talking about how our apartment is crappy, our car is crappy, we're crappy parents, etc. Basically just tearing us down, I guess. We gave her a day to calm down and then told her she had to leave. Y'all, this chick stated squatters' rights. I think that's what it's called. She straight up refused to leave. She said she'd been here more than 2 weeks, so she was technically a tenant. She told the police this when I called them and was able to prove it with mail. I cut the power to her room. I took all our flatware and dishes, pots, pans, everything, and put them in our room. I even took our microwave out of the kitchen. I took her ducking mattress and she still won't leave. So we pulled $500 out of our bank and gave it to her to find a weekly hotel to stay at until her apartment was ready. We just couldn't take it anymore and we wanted our house back. She had stopped showering and was making our house reek between all the dirty diapers, food hardening in her room, and body odor. So she took the money and locked herself in her room laughing. I started to cry. And then I got angry and started to devise a plan. It's amazing the things you can achieve with a sober mind. The next day, we call our property manager and fill her in on everything that's been going on. Turns out that today of all days, our property manager supervisor was filling in. We were completely honest about everything and broke down multiple times giving her the rundown on the recent events. She more than sympathized with us. She said to call her when my sister-in-law got home from work so she could come and talk with her herself. She gets home, we call the property manager. Our property manager tells her she should really just leave peacefully unless she wants an eviction on her record. It was a futile attempt, but figured we'd try anyway. She, of course, refuses. We had gathered all her things into the living room while she was at work and told her that my husband will take her anywhere she needs to go, but she's not staying here one more day. She called the police like we knew she would. You know, for someone who's staying in someone else's home unwanted and your only proof is mail, you really think you'd keep that mail on your person at all times. Well, when the police got there, she couldn't find her mail. Wonder how that happened. Police tell her to leave and she refuses. Mind you, her baby is sitting there eating our cat's food out of his bowl and screaming and flailing around, and when I tell her that her kid's eating cat food, she tells me to shut up and that she's a mother of the baby and she knows how to parent. The police are watching all of this. They tell our property manager she can trespass her and she does. My sister-in-law starts screaming, "His wife is crazy, she's an addict," repeatedly. The police tell her everything she's saying is irrelevant and that she needs to leave or she will be arrested. So now she can't come back to our apartment without a police escort to get the remainder of her things. My husband took her to a motel and told her she can get her things whenever, and she still had the $500 we gave her the day before. Fast forward to last weekend. She hired movers to come get her things, and we thought that was that. Now she's blowing up our phones because she's saying one of the suitcases on the patio was hers. We say, "Come back with the police right now and we'll show you it's ours." It literally has my name on it. She refuses and is now texting us saying she filed on Monday and is suing us and calling the Air Force commander. You know, I think he has quite a few more important things to worry about than some homeless lady's stinking missing bag, but that's just me. In conclusion, my sister-in-law is a mess, and I think I may just have to file a restraining order. We blocked her number, and she's still finding ways to message us. We've told her repeatedly to leave us alone and that if she needs to take us to court, then so be it. As you know, if you've seen the first post, my mother-in-law was highly pissed that we threw her daughter out. So much so that she made us come get our daughter early, who was in her care at the time, so we could get our first sober months under us and clean up our lives, instead of letting her finish out the school year like we'd planned. While my daughter was at my mother-in-law's house, we told her she could have a phone so we could have a direct line of communication with her without having to go through my mother-in-law, because a lot of the time she would never answer the phone. When we told my mother-in-law we were sending her a phone, she immediately shut that idea down, and so not wanting to rescind on a promise we had already made to our kid, we let her have the phone when she came home. Hindsight is 20/20. No 7-year-old should have a phone, and I realize that now, but alas, parents make mistakes. The other day I was doing a check on her phone, making sure she wasn't doing anything she shouldn't be doing, and I saw she'd been texting my mother-in-law. As I'm going through the messages, I see things like, "I want you to come live with me permanently. I'm thinking of moving. Don't say anything." And my personal favorite, "Has your dad been drinking again? My husband and I both hit 8 months sober today. Thank you very much." She hasn't expressed any concern about our sobriety to either of us, and, come to think of it, she hasn't even called us to check in and ask how we've been doing. Before our daughter came home, we agreed to not use any drinking vocabulary around her. We make it a point to not talk about anything regarding our previous drinking or current sobriety because we feel she's still too young to speak about adult topics like that. She's only 7. If our daughter had a question, we'd of course have a sit-down and explain whatever she wanted to know the best way we could, but that hasn't happened yet. I felt like these things she was saying to our daughter were interfering with her transition back into our home. She'd been gone 6 months. Promising these happy dreams of permanently living with her and also flat out asking our child if we've been drinking again. Not once did she come to either of us with that question. We would have happily told her we're still going strong. I can see why she'd be concerned because of our previous lifestyle, and I fully expected her to eventually question us, but I never once thought she'd talk to our child about it the way she did. After my husband and I recovered from the initial shock of all this and calmed down, we decided to text his mom. Since with phone calls she usually talks over us and never lets us get a word in or hangs up on us. We told her that the things she was saying were completely inappropriate things to say to a 7-year-old, and that because we wanted our daughter to focus on being a kid and not have to deal with adult topics, we were taking her phone permanently until she is older. My mother-in-law was in town about 2 weeks back, and the only reason we knew about it was because our daughter's cousin told her about it. We never got a phone call, text, nothing. We told her that if she was at all as concerned as she seemed, that we wish she would have asked to come over, see our place, our daughter's room, to see that everything is how it should be, see how well we're doing. We let her know that she can call either one of us anytime to speak to our daughter whenever she wants, and that we know she loves her, and that if she has any questions or concerns about our sobriety, to please ask us. She responded begging us to not take away her only form of communication with her granddaughter from her, and denied ever saying anything to her about my husband's drinking. So I pulled out my handy-dandy screenshots and forwarded them to her. I then let her know that we aren't taking her only form of communication and reiterated that she could call either one of us at any time whenever she wanted to speak to her. Now, see, I know that she doesn't want to have to deal with going through us, and so she won't call, but that's not my problem. Her relationship with our daughter will sadly suffer because of it, but she needs to grow up and bite the bullet and call us if she wants to talk to her. And we told our daughter that if she ever wants to speak to her grandma, to let us know, and we'll give her the phone too. She replied back, "Don't be sending me screenshots." Okay, don't lie, and I won't need to send you my receipts, lady. She messaged us again this morning saying, "How dare we block her? We are disgusting people. She took care of our daughter for 8 months. God don't like ugly. I bet we didn't block her other grandma. How dare we?" First of all, it was 6 months, not 8, but I let that one go. All I replied back was, "We didn't block you on anything, because we didn't. I have no clue what she's even going on about." And she replied back, "I would hope not." And that was that. I mean, my mom has to call us to get through to our daughter too now. Also, for an update on my sister-in-law, I don't know if this family is on the same psycho wavelength or has some kind of werewolf shared mind thing going on, but the same day we saw those messages from my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law had made a new account on Facebook just to harass my husband and call him ugly and pathetic and a loser, etc. This was before we even spoke to my mother-in-law, so it's not like she was mad about that yet. We blocked her new account and went on about the day as usual. I mean, really, who has the time to sit down and make a bunch of accounts to harass your brother and his wife who are obsessed with you? It's absolute madness to me. Edit. Mother-in-law is in a separate state from us. I googled grandparents' laws in our state, and Google says we have to be deceased or have our rights terminated for any of that to apply to her. Mother-in-law is also low income and is already permanently caring for sister-in-law's child, so I doubt she could hire lawyers to try to take our kid from us. She is unofficially my other sister-in-law's caretaker. She has some mental health issues, and they all live together too. Also, I'm assuming us being in a separate state than her works to our advantage. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and our daughter isn't in school during summer, so she'll be under my supervision for the next couple months. When she starts school back up, the first thing we're going to do is letting them know about my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. We're going to have a serious sit-down conversation with our daughter about how grandma's on a timeout right now and for her to never go with anyone, anywhere, unless mom and dad are present. My parents are decent people, but terrible parents and spouses. I, 26 female, went through a lot at their hands growing up. One struggle me and my 3 younger brothers, went through with them is my dad's total denial that he suffers from some obvious mental health issues. Other than his rage issues and blatant narcissism, my dad's biggest problem is probably OCD. I don't say that lightly. His mom is the one that mentioned it first, and he won't listen to her about it either. His obsessive behavior is mostly centered around baseball, and I know how ridiculous that sounds. He started coaching the oldest of my brothers when I was about 8, and it was a hasty downward spiral from there. Practices were 4 nights a week, with full weekend days spent at the baseball field. The quality of our home life directly correlated with how well my brother or his teammates did at practice. My birthday falls during baseball season, and it was either flat out ignored because of baseball or actively ruined by it. If we were not physically watching a baseball game, there was one on the TV. He pays a buttload extra a month to have like every possible obscure sports channel just so he can find baseball, even if it's a high school game in another country or something. My mom is a bit of a doormat, so she just goes along with the guano crazy things he does in the name of the game. My oldest brother finally had to quit at the collegiate level because of all the overuse injuries he racked up with all my dad's extensive training. My middle brother broke off and joined another sport, so he's happy and doesn't get as smothered. and my high school-age younger brother is already getting back problems from all the same overzealous training methods. This isn't just a problem for me, but they enjoyed the sport and aren't as bitter as I am. Moving on to now, I recently got engaged and my parents pledged money for my wedding. They're very well off, and it was a generous pledge. I tried for over a week to set up a thank you dinner because I honestly wasn't expecting as much as they offered, and my dad can get kind of hoity about helping with stuff and not getting enough gratitude, so I wanted to nip it in the bud. No plans are made despite several attempts by me. Whatever. Last week, we found our venue. We tried to discuss the details with my parents, but they wouldn't make time for it. We asked them if we could use some of their pledge for the deposit, less than 10% of what they offered, and they basically said probably, let me get back to you, for 5 days in a row. We only have 2 days left to get the deposit in, and they were still either avoiding us or giving us vague answers, so we asked my fiance's mother-in-law, who is a literal angel, and she agreed to help. My parents were enraged when they found out we'd gone around them for help and finally unloaded on us how stressful their week had been. Why, you ask? Because my dad has been going so crazy with no baseball that as soon as other states opened, he started putting my brother's team in tournaments all over the country. They had literally driven 8 hours one way to play 2 games in the next state over and planned to drive back that night. After planning all these trips, they realized my dad couldn't go because he'd have to quarantine from work, so they were reorganizing all this unnecessary travel they shouldn't have planned in the first place. They also genuinely did not understand why I was not sympathetic. I told my mom it already felt like my wedding was taking a back seat to baseball, and I wasn't going to put up with this. She was appalled I would even say such a thing, because of course my wedding would be a priority, right? My mom calls this morning to kind of apologize for the poor communication and starts asking odd questions about our wedding, namely about the date. For reference, there are 3 dates available for all of next year at our venue. We were avoiding 2 of the 3 for personal reasons. One is the day before Father's Day, and the other is 2 days after my birthday, which left our date. She kept making comments like her anniversary is close to her birthday, and she never minded. It's close, but not 2 days close. And that our anniversary would only overlap with Father's Day once in a while. I got suspicious and asked why she was asking. She kinda huffed and puffed for a bit, and then finally admits, well, it's kinda gonna overlap with this baseball thing. I semi-politely told her to duck off and hung up. My only brother still playing is in high school, and his season will be over before the wedding, so any baseball thing they have going on is elective, not necessary. I honestly should have known this was coming. It's escalated to the point where my parents have guilted my brothers into texting me about moving the date. They're bribing us with a bunch more money to take the Father's Day date because it's not a big deal. My fiancé and I want kids, and soon, and I hate the thought that if we do get pregnant quickly, our first anniversary and his Father's Day will be the same day. It would be. I don't even know what to do at this point because I can't cut out my parents without cutting out my brothers, and they mean the world to me. Baseball has already taken over so much of my life, and it feels like it's already creeping up on my wedding day, too.